Part 92. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 919. When Chuzinyu pressed a secret button on the panel, the purple settlement space was like an oil painting, with its original color faded away, leaving only a gray patch. Time almost stood still at this moment. Chuzinyu found a contact with no nickname and only a blank page, and immediately sent a line of content: "The situation has changed, please go to Yin Yang immediately." After doing this, Chuzinyu sat up and took out the medicine in the inventory to heal his injuries. Chuzinyu entered Yin Yang Star with her real body, and since she did not go through regular dungeon channels, she could not enjoy the protection mechanism of Parallel Paradise. Chuzinyu also brought back the injuries she suffered on Yin Yang Star. Today, treatment can only be achieved with game items. Angel Su. Chuzinyu said these three words through gritted teeth. The only time he was in such an embarrassing situation was when he left Yin Yang Star. After decades of pampering in Blue Star, this was the first time that he was almost killed. Yin Yang Star, Extreme Yin Continent, Volcanic Island. Inside the fried chicken shop, Sutingyu put on the disposable gloves again. He ran away, but he had to continue eating fried chicken, otherwise it would be a waste. "By the way, I have something to confess to you." "Lucifer, say." Sutingyu looked at Lucifer's expression, and it seemed that he was in a good mood. The clerk outside the door has been called back by Lucifer. The former only remembers the memory before he came back from the toilet. Sutingyu ordered another drink for Lucifer, but the taste was still different. Lucifer inserted the straw and took a tentative sip, his brows gradually relaxing a bit. Sutingyu took out the death blade from the inventory, placed it on the table, and then repeated the words he had prepared before, word for word. "Actually, it's like this. When I was looking for divine objects in Jiyang continent. At that time, I didn't know why it was like this. All the fragments of the blade of destruction ran into my knife, and then they fused together and became what they are now." "Lucifer, really, I don't want to either." Sutingyu's words were sincere and there was a trace of guilt in his tone, which made him almost burst into tears. After hearing this, Lucifer looked quite calm. "I know." Sutingyu's voice stopped abruptly. Lucifer took a few sips of the drink and continued, "The blade of destruction is my companion artifact. I can sense what kind of situation it is in. Then, ahem, I can't give you the blade of destruction now." Sutingyu flicked the blade of the death blade with his fingers. "It's a matter of chance, just take it." Lucifer raised his hand and gently pressed it on his heart, feeling the beating coming from inside. "Just take it as a thank you gift to you." Lucifer's attitude towards the edge of destruction is a bit dispensable and perfunctory. Sutingyu asked curiously, "The edge of destruction is your companion artifact, shouldn't it be very important to you?" Although Sutingyu didn't know what the accompanying artifact was, it sounded like it was very important to Lucifer. "Even if I want it, you can't give it to me." It doesn't matter whether Lucifer didn't answer, but just a dozen words left Sutingyu speechless. In any case, regarding the edge of destruction, Sutingyu did not do it right. Those who are a little more hot-tempered must be angry now. But, now it seems that Lucifer really doesn't mind the edge of destruction being fused. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 920. Sutingyu opened the panel to view the main tasks. Main mission: return the artifact, to be refreshed. All three artifacts have been returned to Lucifer, but the latest main quest has not been completed, nor has a new quest been created. The problem must have occurred in the edge of destruction. But Lucifer personally gave Sutingyu the edge of destruction as a thank you gift, but there was still no response at all from the main mission. Looking at this posture, does she have to let her give the edge of destruction to Lucifer? "By the way, Lucifer, let me ask you something." Sutingyu thought of the more important contract. "Lucifer, what?" Sutingyu blinked his big eyes. "Do you want to go to other worlds?" Lucifer tilted his head, huh? Sutinyu began to lie, what do you think, you have come out now, and humans in this world do not welcome gods. If you stay here, you may be plotted by others at any time. Why don't you go to another world with me? It would be impossible to say that Sutinyu didn't have any delusional thoughts when he learned that Deathblade had made a false contract with Lucifer. Although, wanting a god to willingly become one's spirit seems fanciful just by hearing about it. But as the saying goes, how bold a person is, how outrageous their dreams are. Sutinyu thinks she can still fight for the next drop. How is it? Are you not moved? Are you happy? Seeing that Lucifer's face was silent, as if he was thinking about something, Sutinyu tore off a piece of fried chicken and stuffed it into his mouth. You should think about it carefully first, and then give me an answer after you have finished your revenge. Sutinyu had a friendly attitude of not forcing God. But in fact, Sutinyu desperately hoped that Lucifer would quickly nod and agree. The edge of destruction has been fused with the death blade. If he wanted to give it to him, he could only give it to Lucifer, but Sutinyu was reluctant to part with it. So, if Lucifer agrees to become the spirit of the death blade, doesn't he possess the death blade in disguise? In this way, it should be regarded as giving back, right? Lucifer suddenly said, have you finished eating? Ah! What's wrong? Sutinyu swallowed a piece of meat in his mouth and looked up at Lucifer. Someone is coming, a lot of them, hurry up and eat. Lucifer didn't say anything clearly, but just urged. Lucifer's words were a bit confusing. Sutinyu stared at the former for a few seconds and chose to believe it. Sutinyu quickly finished the last fried chicken leg in 3 or 2 bites, then took off his gloves and picked up the half remaining drink. I can do it. Lucifer picked up the unfinished drink, stood up, and walked out the door. Seeing this, Sutinyu followed after paying. Since the volcanic island banned inland boats and people, the tourism industry on the island has almost become very bleak, and ordinary people on the island are prohibited from approaching the seaside. Sutinyu looked at the direction Lucifer was walking in front of, it seemed to be, the seaside. Wait for me. Sutinyu was stunned for a few seconds before Lucifer walked away, and the former quickly chased after him. And at this time, many warships appeared on the sea not far from the volcanic island. On one of the ships, the high-ranking chief minister of Jian was standing on the deck, staring at the volcanic island getting closer and closer, his expression not at all relaxed. Just a few hours ago, Queen Jian was shocked to notice that the Jengan beads left by the royal family's ancestors were shattered on the ground. What this means, the queen knows very well. The queen immediately summoned her chief assistant to the palace. After some discussions, the chief assistant hurriedly left the palace with a wooden box, then mobilized the nearest army and found a warship. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 921. Seaside. Get out and don't come here for an hour. Lucifer's pupils flashed with a trace of golden light, and 5 women in police uniforms stood in front of him. The 5 women's eyes were dull. After hearing Lucifer's instructions, they turned around and left the area. Sutinyu followed Lucifer, watching the latter manipulate the 5 women in the same way, and asked, Lucifer? Are you leaving the volcanic island? Then we have to find a boat. No, wait for someone before leaving. Lucifer turned around and asked, this sea is not big. You can fly across it? Don't you have feathers? Sutinyu again laughed twice, I can't fly for long, and I can't fly fast, it will only take 6 or 7 hours at most, and I will have no physical strength. Once his strength is exhausted, Sutinyu will fall directly from the air and will be weak for a long time. Sutinyu had always traveled alone before, so he couldn't just focus on rushing and ignore his own personal safety. He would only use his flying ability for a short period of time unless it was necessary. Hearing such an answer, Lucifer was a little surprised. For gods, flying is just like walking, it is normal and has no difficulty. The more you practice flying, the longer you can fly. Lucifer recalled that in his memory, some newborn gods were not very good at flying for a while, but they gradually became familiar with it through practice again and again, so he treated Sutingyu like this, said, "I know, I will practice when I have time." Sutingyu remembered that among the personal attributes on the panel, there were two attributes, strength and physique. Originally, he thought they were both. It doesn't matter whether you add some points or not, but now it seems that it is necessary to pay attention to the personal attributes that she has ignored for a long time. The flying ability of feathers does not have a clear usage time limit like other game props, but depends on the user's physical strength. If Sutingyu has enough physical strength, he can fly as long as he wants without worrying at all. Sutingyu glanced at the sea surface and saw rows of small black dots. After taking a closer look, she slightly exclaimed, "Huh? It seems that a ship is coming. There are quite a few." Hearing this, Lucifer turned around and said softly, "Here he comes." Coming, Sutingyu was suspicious. Did Lucifer already know that a ship was about to land on the volcanic island? "Sir, we will reach the volcanic island in 5 minutes." An officer on the ship came over to report. "I'll log in later." "You know what you want to do, right?" "I understand." The chief assistant waved his hand, signaling the officer to step back. After the officer left, the chief assistant turned around and his eyes fell on a wooden box held by the attendant, with an unclear expression. 5 minutes passed in a blink of an eye. "Sir," the attendant beside him called, "it's time to disembark." The first assistant put away the complicated thoughts lingering in his heart, turned around and walked off the boat. Hopefully, it's not too late. Sutingyu watched as the ship stopped in a port not far away, and groups of heavily armed soldiers got off the ships one after another. These soldiers, are they from the mainland? Are they here to find you? Sutingyu turned to look at Lucifer, only to see the latter rushing directly in that direction. After Sutingyu approached, he saw a familiar figure coming off the boat. "Huh? Isn't this Ji-Yin's chief assistant?" "Who?" One person and one god had no intention of concealing their whereabouts. As soon as they approached the port, they were discovered by the soldiers. Later, someone reported it to the chief assistant. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 922. When the first assistant saw Sutingyu's appearance clearly, the expression on his face suddenly became wonderful. Sutingyu was making a big fuss on the Jiyang continent, and images were also transmitted. The chief assistant had seen what the former looked like. "You are the thief who stole 4 sacred objects in a row," the chief assistant said firmly, looking at Sutingyu as if he were looking at a dead person. The corner of Sutingyu's mouth raised slightly, and she raised her little head proudly. "Don't take it seriously, don't take it seriously, I just help you return things that don't belong to you to their original owners, don't thank me too much. As a delicate flower with strong roots under socialism, we should do good things and do good things. You don't ask for anything in return." When the first assistant heard this, the corners of his eyes twitched fiercely. "This man is so shameless," etc. Next to it is. When the first assistant was still the apprentice of the first assistant, he had visited the volcanic island once and met Lucifer once. Although many years have passed, the memory is a little blurry, but the first assistant can't forget what the posture of a god is. "Are you, from under the volcano?" Considering that there were uninformed people around, the first assistant deliberately did not mention the word god. Lucifer did not answer, his eyes were fixed on the wooden box in the hands of the first assistant's entourage. Boom, boom. Lucifer's right hand touched his heart, and his heartbeat gradually began to accelerate abnormally, with a slight sense of suffocation mixed with some unknown weirdness. He doesn't like this feeling. Why come out? If you stay there, you can save your life, right? The chief assistant's expression became a little pitiful, as if he was regretting something. The chief assistant made a gesture, and the attendant next to him presented the wooden box in front of the former. Tens of thousands of years ago, when humans discovered the sealed Lucifer, they hesitated between killing him and continuing to seal him. After deliberation for a long time, they finally decided to stay in Lucifer. Because a living God at the mercy of others, is more valuable than a dead God. But in order to prevent future generations from being able to kill the gods after Lucifer broke the seal, this black flying knife was built and stored in the underground secret palace of the newly built Jian Palace. Only the Queen of Jian and the chief assistant of Jian of each generation know that there is such a magical weapon in the palace. The first assistant and his team were entrusted by the Queen of Jian to take this wooden box and want to kill Lucifer on the volcanic island. And now? Sutingyu blinked his big eyes. What is that? The chief assistant will open the wooden box himself. Sutingyu stared at the wooden box and saw the serious attitude of the chief assistant, and gradually became defensive in his heart. The moment the wooden box was completely opened, a very fast black shadow flew out from the bottom of the box with a whoosh. Sutingyu narrowed her eyes, and she seemed to see a flying knife that was completely black and shiny. There seemed to be some kind of strange twisting red lines on it, like cracks. Boom, boom. In just a few seconds, Lucifer suddenly couldn't feel the beating sensation under his right hand. Returned to deathly silence. Just like it has been for tens of thousands of years. The flying knife shot out and pointed directly at Lucifer's heart. Seeing that Lucifer didn't react at all, and didn't even move to avoid it, Sutingyu couldn't help but say, "Lucifer." While shouting, he wanted to step forward to block it. Lucifer raised his left hand, staring at the trajectory of the flying knife with his shining golden eyes. The moment the flying knife was about to pierce his heart, his index finger and middle finger caught the flying knife. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 923. Buzz Buzz. The tail of the flying knife was still trembling, and the red lines on the blade seemed to suddenly come to life, feeling like flowing liquid. Lucifer felt a trace of pain on his fingertips, which made him frown unconsciously. Immediately, Lucifer stretched out his right hand and touched the blade. The red lines were directly erased. Then, the flying knife stopped shaking. On Lucifer's right hand, there was a drop of bright beads, which looked very much like blood beads. He swept away the blood bead and threw it away. The blood bead gradually evaporated and annihilated in mid-air. How is that possible? The chief assistant's eyes widened, full of disbelief. How could it be of no use at all? This was passed down from the ancestors of the god-killing era. This black flying knife was forged from the extraterrestrial minerals that were specially designed to restrain gods. During the forging process, the gods' efforts were poured into it, and after 108 days of tempering, this flying knife, which was only as big as a palm, was obtained. Once the sealed wooden box is opened, the flying knife can automatically pursue the god who gave his heart and soul, and finally, kill the god. But now, the chief assistant stared blankly at the flying knife that Lucifer gently held in his hand. After the shock, an overwhelming chill hit his body, and his heart beat violently. It's over, the backup tactics left by our ancestors actually have no effect on this god. The chief assistant came to his senses and shouted, "Let's go." Before he finished speaking, the chief assistant turned around and ran away. Sutingyu looked at the scene and blinked his big eyes. That's it? No more. I thought that Jiyan's chief assistant came with great fanfare to have some way to deal with Lucifer, but the result, came and went in a violent way. While running towards the ship, the chief assistant made a call to the empress who was in the Jiyan palace. Failed. In 10 minutes, implement the second plan. After speaking hastily, the chief assistant hung up the phone and focused on escaping from the volcanic island. At the same time, in the Jian palace, the queen's mood fell to the bottom after receiving the news. She turned her head and glanced at several ministers and senior officials who had already come over. Queen, deploy the apocalypse weapons immediately. Yes, Your Highness. Your Highness, there are still many people on the island. Apocalypse weapons are area of effect weapons. If used, everyone on the island will not survive. The Queen interrupted coldly, it's an emergency, it's an emergency. I'm not discussing it, I'm informing you. Hurry and execute the order. Yes. Seaside. He's leaving now? Do you want to chase him? Sutingyu kindly reminded him when he saw that Lucifer was still standing there with no intention of killing him. Lucifer looked around. The chief assistant had left, but the army she brought did not leave. Instead, they surrounded everyone. Don't move. Put your hands up. For these people, Lucifer didn't even look at them. He glanced down at the drink in his hand that was about to bottom out, and frowned slightly. Shooting. Shooting. Seeing that Lucifer was ignoring them, the officer leading the team directly gave the order to attack. Black wings sprouted from Lucifer's back. When the wings spread out, the strong wind formed was like a blade, sweeping towards the surrounding soldiers. The soldiers were instantly blown away by the strong wind, and they could not even hold their weapons steady. Weird, monster. This is a monster. Seeing how Lucifer had dealt with these people so neatly, Sutingyu put the meteor rod he had just taken out back into his pocket. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 924. I'll lend you your knife. At this time, Lucifer suddenly extended his right hand to Sutingyu, his voice calm. Oh, here you go. Sutingyu took out the death blade from the inventory and threw it to Lucifer. Lucifer now has a false contract with the death blade. He is the spirit of the death blade and can also use the death blade. As soon as Lucifer took over the death blade, he took advantage of the situation and slashed at the ship near the sea at will. A moment. A sword energy like a giant wave struck the sea. In an instant, those majestic ships were like fireworks barrels, exploding one after another. On the sea, waves of several meters high were rolled up, carrying the shipwrecks with them, and finally washed up on the beach. On the sea, waves of several meters high were rolled up, carrying the shipwrecks with them, and finally washed up on the beach. After a while, some fresh corpses bleeding from the sea surface floated, turning part of the sea water red. When Sutingyu saw this scene, his eyes immediately widened. Immediately, she visually measured the distance from here to the original ship, and that sword directly destroyed a dozen ships. This destructive power is really outrageous. Open the door to outrageousness. It's so outrageous. Sutingyu thought that he couldn't destroy it so quickly without giving others a chance to react. Sutingyu, who was making soy sauce all the time, glanced at the drink cup in Lucifer's hand that had no drink in it, so he suggested, would you like to buy a new one? Lucifer turned around, returned the death blade to Sutingyu, and nodded lightly, yes. Sutingyu and Lucifer wanted to leave, but the frightened soldiers could not stop them at all and could only watch them leave the beach. Next to the milk tea shop, Sutingyu paid and ordered a cup of milk tea for each person and Zhendu. Lucifer, when do you plan to go to the mainland? Now, people from the Jian continent have been sent over to kill Lucifer, but they have not been able to achieve their goal, and they don't know what tricks they will play in the future. Sutingyu thinks, you have to strike first. We'll go in a minute. Lucifer raised his eyes, holding a cup of hot milk tea in his hand. As for why it's hot, Sutingyu felt that Lucifer was always coughing, so he should try not to eat ice. It was necessary to keep warm. Lucifer came into contact with milk tea for the first time. He didn't care whether it was iced or hot. He took a sip of milk tea and continued, "You try to fly across the sea. Don't worry about your strength. I'm here. That's okay. You can teach me how to fly faster by the way." Sutingyu rubbed her hands excitedly. With Lucifer watching from the side, she really didn't have to worry about running out of energy halfway through the flight. Fall down and hang directly. I just sat at the seat of the milk tea shop casually and drank a cup of milk tea slowly. After finishing, Sutingyu packed up a few more cups and put them in the storage ring for easy drinking on the road. That's almost it? We can go. Sutingyu smiled. She couldn't wait to fly across the sea. One person and one god continued to walk slowly on the street, heading towards the seaside. Suddenly, Lucifer paused. Huh? What's the matter? Sutingyu walked a few steps and found that Lucifer hadn't followed, so he turned back and asked. Lucifer didn't say a word, but slowly raised his head and looked at the sky above his head. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 925. Jiyang Continent. Senate. The congressman looked solemn as he listened to a commentator reporting on the current situation in mainland China. The fifth and sixth domains, so far, there have been no less than 100 rebellions. The eighth domain, as of yesterday's statistics, 54 rebellions have been suppressed. The current situation in the first and second domains is relatively good. Although there were small rebellions, they were quickly and effectively suppressed. All the prisoners who were previously imprisoned in the Blood Sea prison in the ninth domain have escaped. Now, most of them are making trouble in the ninth prison, and a small number have dispersed to other domains, which has also seriously affected the local social order. For 20 minutes, there was no other noise except the commentator's voice. My lords, the above is the general information integrated by the 9 domains. After the commentator finished reporting, he withdrew. The members of the House of Representatives were either angry, solemn, aggrieved, or thoughtful, but no one spoke a word, and the whole place was completely silent. Cough cough cough. Diao Yuanlao's cough broke the dead silence of the scene. These days, Diao Yuanlao suddenly fell ill because he was busy dealing with one basket of headaches and because he was older. Today's meeting was held just after Diao Yuanlao's condition improved. Diao Yuanlao's voice was hoarse and vague. I didn't expect that a mere thief could make the entire continent uneasy. As soon as Diao Yuanlao opened his mouth, the whole audience was like a reservoir with its gates opened. Everyone spoke. Back then, there shouldn't have been any strategy of closing the door and beating the dog. It's better now. The dog wasn't beaten, and the family's bones were stolen. And it turned the world upside down. There was a congressman who did not deal with him in private. He looked at the last congressman who spoke with contempt. In hindsight, what's the point of saying this now? What did you say? Say it again. Stop arguing. The most important thing now is to solve the current matter. It is impossible that all these rebellions are caused by those remnants. It is estimated that among them, there are also some fishermen who are fishing in troubled waters. Let's catch those people first. If we want to clean up the remaining remnants, it is an easy thing. 4 divine items were stolen. If the gods are trapped on the volcanic island, wouldn't there be a chance to recover their divine power and break the seal to escape? Diao Yuanlao coughed a few times from time to time. He listened to everyone's remarks, and when no one else spoke anymore, he continued. The top priority is to stabilize the current chaotic situation in the Jiyang continent. As for the Jiyan continent, there is nothing we can do. We only hope that nothing will go wrong on the Jiyan side. Once you get the divine object, you may not be able to unlock the seal. The keys to unlock the seal are all kept by the Jiyan royal family. It is said that only the queen knows the location. There is no way that the thief can still steal it this time. Bar. That's right. Although the congressmen were worried about whether the gods would break the seal, they didn't think Sutinyu could find the key. As everyone knows, Sutinyu doesn't need to look for it at all. At this time, a man wearing white work clothes hurried over. "Senior, the man from the volcanic island is out. The G inside is going to use the apocalypse weapon. I want to apply for the consent of our Ji Yang." Diao Yuanlao looked stern. "What? Come out, come out. How come?" "Agree. We agree. Yes, I'll reply right away. Extremely incontinent. Volcanic island." Sutinyu saw Lucifer looking towards the sky and looked up curiously. The weather in the extremely cloudy continent is usually cloudy and rainy. Even if it doesn't rain, the sky will be gray, but today, it is rare and cloudless. "What are you looking at?" Sutinyu asked. Lucifer still stared at the sky and replied, "Something is about to fall." "Ah? Could something fall? I didn't even see a bird." Sutinyu looked left and right, but couldn't see anything wrong. A trace of golden light appeared in front of Lucifer's eyes. The sky in his eyes, his field of vision kept getting farther and higher, reaching an altitude tens of thousands of miles above the ground. A giant machine was running efficiently, and one of its long mechanical bodies seemed to be aimed at the volcanic island below. Lucifer instinctively felt a trace of danger. "But it's just a trace. Is this what you are talking about, the crystallization of human civilization?" Lucifer snorted invisibly, and even Sutinyu beside him didn't hear it. Deep in his mind, a weak voice came out again. "Be careful, there are still humans on the island." Hearing this, Lucifer's eyes flashed with sarcasm. "Ridiculous. Whether it's the humans in this world or a so-called god with boundless love like you, it's all ridiculous." Lucifer turned his head and told Sutinyu, "I'll lend you your knife and use it, and then you wait for me here." Sutinyu looked confused, but he still handed over the death blade quickly. After getting the death blade, Lucifer spread the wings on his back and flew straight into the sky. "Hey? What's wrong?" Sutinyu blinked her big eyes, her gaze following Lucifer's shrinking figure. "Could it be that there's something up there?" In the blink of an eye, Sutinyu could hardly see Lucifer's figure. Too high. Even if Sutinyu had the ability to fly, he wouldn't be able to keep up. Jian Palace. When she saw Lucifer suddenly flying out of the island, trying to resist the power of the apocalypse weapon head-on without knowing her own strength, the queen raised a trace of ridicule at the corner of her mouth. God is indeed arrogant and arrogant. She waits and sees. Wait and see how this god dies. The queen immediately called up the first-person video of the apocalypse weapon. In the picture, the apocalypse weapon has begun to charge, and in less than 30 seconds, it can be launched immediately, destroying the volcanic island below, along with the gods. And a figure appeared below the launch port of the apocalypse weapon. Lucifer held the death blade in his hand, and his cold golden eyes stared at the apocalypse weapon without any fluctuation. 30 seconds passed in an instant. The launch port of the apocalypse weapon instantly shot out a blue light wave with an aura of destruction. Lucifer slightly raised the death blade in his hand and placed it in front of him. The surface of the blade was coated with a faint golden light. Lucifer simply waved his arm. The death blade condenses the sword energy and shoots it towards the apocalypse weapon. The blue light wave hit the sword energy first, but it evaporated instantly like fire hitting water. The momentum of the sword energy didn't stop, it was as devastating as the entire apocalypse weapon, splitting it into two. Boom! Boom! The entire apocalypse weapon exploded in the sky. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 926. Settlement Space. His. Chu-Xinyu used another medicine to try to heal the injury, but the entire bottle of medicine was used up, and the injuries on her body did not improve at all. Chu Xinyu was so angry that she smashed the empty medicine bottle. Chu Xinyu's injuries all came from the handwriting of the gods, and it was difficult for ordinary medicine to have an effect. Chu Xinyu couldn't get out of the settlement space unless she stabilized her injury. Just when Chu Xinyu was upset, a message with an unfamiliar nickname popped up. "Why did the last god escape? Didn't I ask you to go and see him?" Looking at this tone, Chu Xinyu guessed who was on the other side. Chu Xinyu replied, "I still want to ask you this, didn't it say that the closed beta is over? How come there are still players who can enter Yin Yang Star, and her dungeon mission is probably related to rescuing the gods?" "What, player, this is impossible. Are you sure there is a player doing something secretly?" When Chu Xinyu thought of Sutingyu's hateful mouth before, she was so angry that her teeth itched again. "I'm sure, I still know that player, he's from Blue Star. The only possibility is to enter through tokens, but..." Chu Xinyu asked, "But what?" "Nothing, please explain the information you got in detail." Chu Xinyu lowered her head and glanced at the injuries on her body, and thought, "It's okay, but I was injured by that god when I was working for you. None of the medicines I have on hand that can be redeemed in the mall can heal the wound." Chu Xinyu sent the message and waited for almost a minute before the other party responded, "I can give you the medicine." After getting the answer she wanted, Chu Xinyu sent the information she got. At the end, Chu Xinyu thought for a while and added another sentence. "The female player named Angel Su helped the gods to lift the seal, and the gods seem to have a good attitude towards her. If necessary, you can start with that female player." Chu Xinyu sent the message, and within a few seconds, there was a reply, "That is a god, how could he put mortals in his eyes?" "Okay, I'll give you the medicine." Chu Xinyu took out the medicine provided there, and then rubbed the medicine on the wounds on her body. Within a few minutes, Chu Xinyu felt an itch, and the wound gradually began to heal. Seeing this, Chu Xinyu breathed a sigh of relief. Extremely Yin continent. Royal Palace. The queen sat up suddenly, her pupils full of disbelief. How is it possible? No one can survive the weapon of apocalypse. No. The queen's scream suddenly seemed to be stuck, and the look on her face slowly turned into deep fear. No one will survive, but this is a god. The queen slumped down on the throne behind her and murmured, "It's over, it's all over. If the most powerful apocalypse weapon has no effect, then even if it takes advantage of all mankind, it will be impossible to kill the last god in the world. Your Highness, what should we do?" "Your Highness, how about we send the army?" The ministers present were not much better. Out of fear and death, they were racking their brains to think of ways, but none of them were reliable. Volcanic Island. Sutingyu held a cup of milk tea in her hand, raised her head, and drank the milk tea while admiring the fireworks above her head. Very beautiful. The apocalypse weapon disintegrated, and some debris fell into the sky, with a slender black tail. Before hitting the ground, it had almost spontaneously commusted in mid-air. Even if it fell to the ground, it would not kill anyone. It might just disturb the flowers and plants. The movement above the head was too loud, and some people on the volcanic island also noticed the situation. People who were kept in the dark and had no idea that they had just escaped the disaster gathered in the street, and some people had already started to take out their mobile phones and record videos. After Sutingyu drank almost half a cup of milk tea, she let out a small burp. When she looked at the sky again, she found Lucifer's figure reappeared. Lucifer landed next to Sutingyu. "What's going on? What did you break up there?" Although Sutingyu couldn't see the situation just now, he could figure it out through Lucifer's series of operations. Lucifer thought about it, a longer thing, like some kind of human weapon. Long. Still launching in the sky? Could it be that it was still an atomic bomb? But there was no radiation or anything after the explosion. If he couldn't guess it, Sutingyu stopped guessing. Anyway, they were all gone. It is probably the work of the Jian royal family. First, they sent people to use that flying knife to attack you. After that failed, they threw fireworks on your head. Tisk, 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 now it failed again. I guess I was very panicked and didn't care. Do you know if there is any backup plan? After listening to Sutingyu's words, Lucifer thought for a few seconds and said, "Now, go find someone." Huh? Looking for someone? Are you going to Jian Palace? Well, you lead the way, I don't know the way. Well. So, one person and one god decided happily. Lucifer spread his wings again and flew into the air. Seeing this, Sutingyu also used his flying ability to follow. Shortly after Ren Yishen left, a large group of local people came to this area. They looked around as if they were looking for something. I obviously saw it falling in this direction. Why is there no more? That shadow really looks like a person with wings on its back. At this time, the one person and one god who had already flown to the sea had no idea that anyone was looking for them. Pay attention to the airflow and the frequency of wing flapping. Lucifer flew behind Sutingyu, passing over the latter's head from time to time and watching her flying style. Oh, I know, as a good student, Sutingyu said that she would study hard. Lucifer looked at it for a while and then said no more. It was quiet for a while, and Sutingyu was a little uncomfortable, so she turned to look at him. Why don't you say anything anymore? After that, you can find some birds to learn from and see how they fly. Looking for birds to learn from? You gods. Sutingyu's eyes widened slightly. Lucifer vetoed, no. The wings of gods are natural. Except for the initial adaptation, they can be used like normal hands and feet. Your wings are not real wings, but abilities given to you. Oh, after Sutingyu heard this, he continued to practice flying. The subsequent flight was successful, and Lucifer said nothing more. Lucifer didn't know how to teach others. He figured it out on his own. He could make some suggestions at the beginning, but in the future, he could only look at Sutingyu himself. Fortunately, Sutingyu seemed to have some talent. After practicing slowly, his flying speed became much faster than before. Tell me something. From now on, the number of words in each subsequent chapter will change from 1000 to 2000 or 4000. The normal number of updates per day is still 4000. Unless you ask for leave, you can only ask for 1 or 2 days a month at most, just as a rest. It is impossible to ask for too many. Please consider adding more if you recommend it. Because I want to get a small score of Kinjun, I want to do it together, hoping to get a small score of Kinjun. If I can get a small score of Kinjun, it will be a good thing for this book. Bookstore subscription depends on the number of words, 1 book coin for 200 words, 5 book coins for 1000 words. Don't look at it. After closing the chapter, 10 book coins for a chapter, 2000 words, or 20 book coins for 4000 words, seems to have become expensive. In fact, the number of words in this chapter has also increased. If you want to know if the word count has increased, just pay attention to the number of page turns and you will know. Just Zhangzi, let me explain it clearly in advance, so as not to misunderstand some little cuties who don't know. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 927. In order to accommodate Sutingyu's speed, it took one person and one god almost an hour to fly across the sea area. After arriving on the mainland, Sutingyu turned on the navigation on her phone, located the location of Shangjukan district, and rushed there directly. Here, Sutingyu was practicing flying, which was really fun. But on the other side, After receiving the news that both Sotingyu and Lucifer were missing, Queen Jian began to panic, fearing that the former would appear in front of her in the next second. For this reason, Queen Jian strengthened the security of the palace, and then ordered the mobilization of the nearest army. After there were more people, Queen Jian slowly calmed down a bit. No. They will definitely not dare to come, how could it be possible? The queen comforted herself in her heart. At this time, bang! The energy shield protecting the entire palace was penetrated by some force and completely dissipated in the air. Everyone in the palace was frightened by this incident. What happened? Enemy attack. Why is the protective cover gone? Look. There's someone in the sky, there's someone in the sky. In mid-air, the newly arrived person and god made such a big noise. Sotingyu glanced at the palace, and finally pointed to Gakifa Palace, that's where Queen Jian works and lives. Lucifer glanced at the direction Sotingyu was pointing, and then flew to Gakifa Palace first, with Sotingyu following closely behind. What are you going to do? Sotingyu was not very experienced in this kind of matter and could not give Lucifer any constructive suggestions. Lucifer didn't say a word, and only stopped when he flew over the Gakov Palace. Do not go. In my mind, that voice appeared again at an inappropriate time. Lucifer's originally emotionless face became a little more irritated. He stretched out his hand and the death blade from Sotingyu's inventory flew out. As soon as the death blade was in hand, Lucifer slashed towards the palace below. Bang! Bang! In an instant, the originally majestic and splendid palace was directly divided into two. In the Gakov Palace, the queen sat on the ground in embarrassment, dust and smoke billowed, and she couldn't stop coughing, cough, 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 someone, come quickly, cough, cough, cough. Whoosh whoosh. At this time, two figures flew down from the large hole in the ceiling overhead. There. Queen Jian. Came a rather excited female voice. When the queen raised her head, her face suddenly stiffened. The death blade in Lucifer's hand has been pointed at the queen's head. Is it you, who wants to shoot iron lumps in the sky? The queen couldn't move her whole body and could only endure the suffocating feeling that death might come at any time. No. This. The queen hesitated, even wanting to shirk responsibility, but when she looked into Lucifer's golden eyes uncontrollably, her head went blank, and she said blankly, "Yes, it's me." Ordered. After saying these words, the queen escaped from the controlled state. The gods in front of you, even if they are silent, are intimidating, especially those who have ghosts in their hearts, they are even more afraid. The queen looked terrified. You, what do you want to do? I am the queen of Jian. Whatever you want, power, wealth, beauty, I can give it to you. No need. Lucifer was unmoved. He hated the human being with divinity in his blood before him, and his voice was cold. Just take your life. No. You can't. The queen's pupils were full of fear. She tried desperately to struggle, but the soles of her feet seemed to be coated with glue and remained firmly in place. Lucifer must have looked at it for a few seconds. The death blade in his hand moved slightly, and the blade was almost close to the queen's neck. At this moment, a loud shout suddenly came from the sky. Stop! For a moment, time and space stopped. The queen's face still retained a look of horror, and her entire figure was frozen in place like a sculpture. Sotingyu, who was watching the show, rolled his eyes, but couldn't move his whole body. Lucifer lowered his eyes and looked at the death blade in his hand. Even if he moved his hand slightly, it was extremely difficult. Fortunately, it's here. It's quite timely. In the sky, a whirlpool door appeared, and 20 black shadows flew out of it. They were all in black robes, and even their faces could not be seen clearly. It was so dark. From the sounds, they could be both men and women. Just when Lucifer's movement was restricted, a trace of golden light lit up on his two palms, helping him get rid of his shackles. Lucifer turned around and walked towards Sutinyu, thrust the death blade at the latter's feet, then took a few steps away, looked up into the air, and glanced at these uninvited guests with his golden eyes. "Who are you?" "Mikhail, we were kind enough to spare your life at the beginning, but now you have repaid kindness with vengeance and brutally killed human beings. It is simply an unforgivable crime. Mikhail, do you really think that no one in this world can control you?" Sutinyu listened to the sudden appearance of the men in black robes, standing in front of Lucifer with awe and righteousness, and making accusations. As for the latter, it was the word Mikhail that was completely unfamiliar to Sutinyu. "What's going on? Mistaken God?" Sutinyu was a little confused. In the main mission of the panel system, Lucifer is clearly written on it. Is it possible that Mikhail is Lucifer's nickname? Or a pseudonym? There was no surprise on Lucifer's face, and he had no intention of correcting the wrong names of the two men in black robes. Although Lucifer couldn't see the true appearance of these people, he could feel the strong divinity in these people, and an answer flashed in his mind: "Are you still alive? Humph. Today is the day you die. Suffer death." The man in black robes said no more and attacked Lucifer directly. Seeing this, Lucifer spread his wings and flew upwards. On the ground, Sutinyu couldn't even move his head, so he couldn't see what was going on above him. He could only listen to the sounds, as if the fighting was fierce. Sutinyu's eyes turned anxiously several times, and his eyes fell on the death blade beside him. "Sutinyu, little master, Lucifer has kept you here. Is there any way to help me free myself from the current control?" Deathblade. "Sutinyu, that's great, hurry up, I believe you. I still have to rush to the first scene to eat melon. Look, I am going to cheer for Lucifer." Deathblade. "Sutinyu, no way, right? You really can't do it, right? Ouch, what use do you have? There is no use in rising to the pseudo-god level." Deathblade. Just when Sutinyu thought the broken knife was of no use, he saw the broken knife begin to tremble. Boom! A shadow fell from the sky and landed not far from Sutinyu's eyes. Sutinyu's eyes widened slightly. And then, she found that she could move. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 928. Without the restraints, Sutinyu pulled out the death blade from the ground and turned to look at the battle in the sky. Lucifer is holding the angel sword in his hand, fighting alone against the remaining dozen men in black robes. Sutinyu counted the number of black-robed men in the sky and found that there were not 20, and there were only about 16 now. Except for the one who fell next to him, Sutinyu looked curiously for the other 4. Within a moment, he found the other 3 men in black robes who had fallen on the ground. They were all motionless, not sure whether they were dead or alive. In such a short period of time, Lucifer eliminated 4 men in black robes. But the situation is still that there are fewer enemies and more enemies, which is not cost-effective. Sutinyu silently pondered the possibility of helping, and then rejected it. These black-robed men who appear inexplicably can control the time of this world. They are too mysterious and terrifying. If I go up there, it will feel like giving away someone's head. Forget it. At this time. Heaven. Lucifer was not as relaxed as he imagined, but there was no timidity on his face. How can he still fight? Continue. He just broke the seal, he can't hold on for long. We can't let Russ's sacrifice be in vain. The remaining dozen or so men in black robes were even more gnashing their teeth at Lucifer. I thought that with their numerical advantage and the fact that they had been cultivating for so long, they would be able to have the strength to rival or even surpass the gods, but still. After killing 3 people again and seriously injuring 2 others, Lucifer felt that his physical strength was obviously lost. After glancing at the 11 people left, Lucifer put his left hand on his heart, and the coldness in his eyes only increased. Why? Suddenly, an illusory voice appeared in Lucifer's ear. "There's really nothing I can do about you." An illusory figure slowly formed behind Lucifer, stretched out his right hand, covered the back of his hand, and grabbed the angel sword together. "Bullying a newly born god, a human being, really disappoints me as always." All the remaining men in black robes heard this voice and were shocked. "And who are you?" "It's impossible, it's impossible." But no voice will answer them anymore. In the eyes of the remaining men in black robes, the last remaining image was just a dazzling golden light, and nothing else. The golden light dispersed. Below, Sutingyu was a little stunned. She looked at the menacing men in black robes, one by one, like dumplings, falling to the ground without making any sound. Lucifer lowered his head, his eyes locked on the only two seriously injured men in black robes who were still alive, and he was just about to finish it. A soft sigh seemed to come from the center of the sky and the earth, resounding through everything in the world. Enough. As soon as he finished speaking, Lucifer felt a sudden heavy pressure on his body. This sudden pressure attacked Lucifer and the other two seriously injured men in black robes indiscriminately. Lucifer groaned, and a thick stream of blood overflowed from his throat. He held on and secretly swallowed the mouthful of blood. At the same time, the heart that had just been placed in Lucifer's heart lit up with a faint golden light, relieving the pressure on him. "Don't be impulsive, that voice is." Lucifer's eyes flashed and he stood up straight again. Above the sky, there was a soft sound, as if he was wondering about something. "You have been imprisoned for more than 200,000 years. Now, you have killed 18 people and seriously injured 2 people. That's enough, stop it, child." The voice seemed to be born with such compassion, and his tone was soft. Slowness, like some kind of magic spell, can make people let go of their guard unconsciously. But Lucifer didn't accept this trick. He raised the angel sword high and pointed it directly at the sky, with a cold look on his face. "Where were you when the gods were about to become extinct?" "That's natural selection." A sigh came from the distant sky. Lucifer's eyes were even colder. "Since it is natural selection, and now, I am stronger than human beings, then I will wipe out all human beings, which is also in compliance with the natural law of natural selection." "What qualifications do you have to come out, intervene? You roll." The voice wanted to argue, but the next second, Lucifer, who had no patience at all, scolded him coldly. "Be bold. Presumptuous." When the two remaining men in black robes saw Lucifer's disrespectful behavior, they couldn't stand up and yelled out, quite indignant. After a few seconds, the voice sounded again, without a trace of anger, like a wise man, speaking with sincerity and sincerity. "So what if you kill all mankind? All the gods are dead. You are the last god in the world and you should not become a fallen demon." "What? What do you mean? I still have to protect these humans." Lucifer's eyes had no warmth. "If you can think so, it would be great." Before the voice in the sky finished speaking, Lucifer sneered, to borrow a human saying, "Stop dreaming in broad daylight. Child, you are still the god of this world, and you still have to live in this world. For your future, don't make things too rigid." When Sutingyu heard this, he couldn't stand. What the hell? She was almost able to trick Lucifer into following her, but this voice that appeared out of nowhere didn't even dare to show his face, so he just wanted to steal the spotlight from her? No way. Sutingyu immediately spoke, "It's not just this world. He can come with me. Anyway, there's nothing to treat in this deformed and perverted world." Lucifer suddenly heard Sutingyu, and his expression was dazed for a moment. He turned to look at Sutingyu below, who noticed it and immediately raised a smile. Then, Sutingyu's voice came again, "I'll make trouble with you. Make the whole thing upside down. Then we'll run away. No one can catch us." After hearing this, Lucifer felt a little complicated in his heart, but it was undeniable that the depression accumulated in his heart was relieved. "Who are you?" That voice also noticed Sutingyu. Suddenly, Sutingyu felt prying eyes coming from all directions, which made her feel numb. "What the hell, are you just pretending to be a ghost?" Sutingyu rubbed her arms that were about to get goosebumps and muttered quietly. The next second, an unexpected force of gravity pressed on Sutingyu's back. Out of reach. Sutingyu almost knelt on the ground. When Sutingyu came to his senses, he put his hands on the ground and tried to stand up. You're still, so petty," Sutingyu stumbled out. When Lucifer saw this scene, he immediately summoned the angel's staff, threw it in front of Sutingyu, and stuck it on the ground. The golden light from the angel's staff enveloped Sutingyu's whole body, resisting the gravity for her, and Sutingyu was able to stand up again. As soon as he got up, Sutingyu immediately grabbed the angel's staff with both hands, not letting go no matter what.